We are live. Hello, guys. Emergency meeting. Bucharest, Romania, Troy Francis. Here we are, ready to go. All right. So as people are filing in, if people do file in, because this was an impromptu one that I just decided to do just now, I thought I'd give you a little bit of an update. I just arrived in, and also as well, by the way, invariably, wherever I go on the planet, my internet is shit. So I'm hoping that the internet is going to be a bit better now. It's not looking great from what I can see from the monitor there. But if you let me know in the chat what it sounds like, what the picture looks like, and then we can take it from there. But anyway, here we are in Bucharest, Romania. It's a city that you might have heard of. Romania is a country you might have heard of. It's been in the news a little bit recently for various reasons. But I'm here. I got here this afternoon and just relaxing, just very, very short flight from Istanbul to get to Romania. I wasn't actually aware, or I'd never looked at it before. I wasn't really aware how quick it was, but literally you can get to Bucharest from Istanbul in about an hour. It literally took us just about an hour to get here, which is great. So it's a very good little journey. Sound good. Picture getting stuck. Yeah, man. I mean, I'm looking at the fucking. I'm looking at the connectivity here, and it's just so annoying, man. It's so annoying. There is something in the works. I'm finally going to be getting this sorted out. Okay, in London, we're going to be getting this sorted out. We're going to have a proper, decent setup with some decent Wi-Fi. But for today, I just thought I'd come on for like another half hour or so, a bit of a chat, do a bit of a Q&A, and just see where we get to. I think it's quite good when I'm out and about traveling, just to give you guys a bit of an update. So what's been happening? Well, as I say, I was in. Keep going with the stream. Okay, Alpha Interactions, thank you, man. By the way, anybody who's got any questions or any comments or anything that you want to say or anything you want to talk about, put it into the comments and we'll bring it up on screen and we'll deal with it, okay? Because there's no massive agenda for today's stream. I just wanted to jump on and touch base, basically. Your internet is rubbish again. Yeah, I've just covered that, man. I've just said that wherever I go, I mean, look, this hotel, right? This is a 5-star hotel, okay? This is literally one of the best hotels in Bucharest. It might be one of the best hotels in Romania. It probably is. And still, the internet is rubbish. And you know the reason why? Because what you actually need to do is you need to hardwire in. But unfortunately, in hotels, you can't usually hardwire in because, well, there's not usually a socket for you to do that. You just can't really do it. So yeah, but as I say, don't worry, because this is something that we are figuring out. And in London, very soon, going to have some proper studio space, and we're going to be smashing these live streams. So it's going to get a lot better. But for today, as I say, I'll just be on for about half an hour or something. We'll just have a bit of a chin wag. So I was in Istanbul for a week. Istanbul is one of my favorite cities on the planet, and I'm actually going to be back there very soon to work on another project with James Tusk. So keep your ears peeled for that. In fact, actually, look, fuck it. While I'm here, I can tell you we are going to be running a boot camp, okay, in Istanbul. Myself and James Tusk. Your Wi-Fi needs to find a Wi-Fi. Your Wi-Fi jinx needs to find a Wi-Fi instead. I don't think so. Yeah, so myself and James Tusk, we're going to be doing a boot camp. We're going to be doing coaching in Istanbul, okay? And basically, it is going to be, let me give you the dates. So if you can get to Istanbul, or if you would like to come to Istanbul, which is an amazing city, to come and practice some game skills, to practice some RIS, to practice some social skills with myself and James Tusk, then please get in touch. You can drop me an email and you can come and join us. We'll get on a call with you, obviously, make sure that you're, the right kind of candidate for this, but we can certainly talk about it. So yeah, we are looking at, okay, week commencing the 10th. So basically we're looking at the 13th, 14th, 15th and 16th of July. Myself, James Tusk, in Istanbul, one of the greatest cities in Europe and Asia, if you want to put it like that. Certainly one of the most populous cities. It's like there's like 20 million people there or something. I mean, it's absolutely huge. Okay. As for the dating scene is concerned, so many opportunities. It's just super. It's one of the craziest, most busy places you're ever going to go to. Okay. Absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect for learning dating skills. All right. I was working with a student there last year, a somewhat more mature gentleman in his 50s, actually. He'd just come out of a divorce, and we went and worked there together for a few days, had a fantastic time, met some beautiful women. There's women from all over the world there. There's a lot of like, obviously, you've got the Turkish women who are very beautiful. And very warm and very feminine, but you've also got a lot of Russians there. You've got some Ukrainians there. You've got people from Azerbaijan. You've got people from Iran. There's this whole melting pot of people there, basically. So it really needs to be seen to be believed. So we're going to be running a live workshop there over 4 days. As I say, the 13th to the 16th inclusive. So if you would like to come and join us, or if you'd like some more information about that, drop me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com, and we can get on a call and have a conversation about it. Okay, so that's the first thing. What else is happening? So I was there for about a week. I had to go and get some treatment done, which was not a lot of fun. It wasn't a vacation, and it wasn't really a working thing. It was just I had to get some stuff done. So I was staying in a hotel that was kind of in a bit of a not the best area. I mean, the area was fine. The hotel was very nice, but it wasn't a place to be like running around and doing riz or going on dates or doing anything particularly exciting. I spent a lot of the time just in the hotel working and relaxing and so on and so forth. And it was like the last day was the best day, because on the last day, I got a cab, got a taxi into the center. Okay, I say the center, near to where Grand Bazaar is. All right, so if anyone's been to Istanbul, you'll know they've got this huge market there, Grand Bazaar. You can buy pretty much anything. You can buy jewelry, you can buy spices, you can buy carpets, you can buy food, you can buy all clothes, all kinds of things. Loads of knockoff kind of designer clothes there and stuff like that. So I went in there and I had a really, really good look around. Filmed a bit of content. That was on the Saturday. And then hung out until sort of early evening, went back to the hotel, had a meal, chilled out, and then got up today, got all the packing sorted out, and came over here to Romania. And now I'm in Romania. I've met up with a friend. I'm going to do some work with him over the next 2 days. So we met up, had a quick bite to eat before, and now I'm just doing this lovely stream with you guys before retiring. So with that being said, what are your questions about dating and mating and attraction and so on and so forth? Put them into the chat and I will deal with them. I can certainly witter on about some stuff for the next half an hour. No problem with that at all. But obviously I want to make these things as actionable as possible in order to benefit you guys, basically. Stop teasing us. What did you have done? I had liposuction on my penis. Liposuction of the penis. It's not a common procedure. It's quite uncomfortable, but in some cases it's necessary. So I had to get it done because it was just getting a little bit too big downstairs. Okay, so Alpha Interaction says, Troy, I recently had a 3-girl rotation going solid for 2 years. The girls I was dating were pushing for commitment, so I binned 2 out of the 3. I'm 37 now, and I'm allergic to having a regular girl. Yeah, okay. Well, so what are you saying then? Are you saying that you want to get some more girls back on the roster, or are you regretting binning off the 2 girls, or what's the situation? I mean, I think that you were seeing 3 girls for 2 years. So I think after that, it's going to be very hard to revert back to just seeing, like 1 girl. It's going to be very hard because your dopamine levels. So I mean, I'm no neuroscientist, but the composition of your brain is now used to a certain amount of stimulation from having 3 different partners for quite a long period of time. And so it's going to be very, very hard now to revert back from that to comfortable, polite, dull monogamy with one woman. So probably you're going to have to get out there again and get some new recruits in, I would have thought. Perhaps that's what you're doing already. I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are on it, or what your strategy going forward is. I mean, I think that it gets talked about a lot, doesn't it, in this space, about how women become less able to pair bond if they have had a large number of partners in their life. Okay. And women will call out hypocrisy then, because they'll say, well, what about men? Is it, isn't it the same for men? And I think guys will then push back and say, well, no, it's not the same for men, because sex is much less of a sort of, it's a much more considered sort of act for women. It's a much more kind of, I heard it expressed recently on a podcast, when women cheat, when men cheat, they're just cheating, they're just doing it, because they want to get laid. When women cheat, they mean it. Okay, so there is this idea, and it's largely true, that sex for women is a much more considered act. It's a much more significant thing for them than it is for men. But in saying all of that, I think after you get to a certain point, I think men's ability to pair bond monogamously does become compromised if they've had a pretty spicy love life. If you look at people like, I was going to say James Tusk. I mean, I don't want to name names, so I take that back. We'll cut that out in the edit. But if you look at people who've had a pretty prolific sort of dating life, and I guess I could probably include myself in this as well. And then you think, well, okay, so is that person then just going to revert back to monogamy? Or how easy is it going to be for that person to do that? Probably pretty hard, to be honest, even as a guy, because you're so used to that variety that the thought of then containing yourself in a box with one person becomes incredibly difficult to countenance. And I'm not sure there's an easy answer to it. Well, perhaps there is an answer to it. And that would be to retrain your mind. Okay, it's like coming off of an addiction, isn't it? You have to go cold turkey on the thing, whatever it is, for a period of time until your mind has a chance to reset itself. So it's conceivable that if you wanted to, you could retrain your mind to become happy, or at least contented, with just one partner. It is conceivable. But is that really what you want to do? If the motivation isn't there, then it's not really going to happen. Women cheat to end the relationship, men cheat to save the relationship. Yeah, that gets said, doesn't it? I'm not sure exactly what that means. How do you cheat to save a relationship? What does that really mean? I don't really know exactly what that means, to be honest. Except that, well, sometimes for a guy, having a bit on the side can counterintuitively revitalize his attraction to the main woman. That can happen. I've experienced that myself, but I think it's a bit disingenuous. I don't think it's the case that men always cheat to save the relationship. I think men cheat because they want to get pussy on the side, basically. I don't think it's anything more than that for the most part. So Alpha Interactions continues. At the moment, I've had 6 one-night stands in the last 8 weeks, and I do not want a regular roster of women at the moment at age 37. Is that normal? Well, I don't know if it's normal, but it's certainly familiar. I mean, I was probably very similar at the age of 37. I mean, I've shared before on these streams or in videos that actually for myself, 39 was a very active year of dating for me. It was a very promiscuous year of dating for me, and often I'll give that as an example when guys think that it's all going to be over at 30 or in their 30s. And I'm like, no, not at all. I mean, for me personally, my 30s and even my late 30s were very, very, very prolific, very spicy, very filled with action. It's funny how there's a lot of pushback on that concept, not just from women, but actually from other guys. There's a real black pill doomer pushback against the idea that men peak in their 30s. I saw just comments about it even today on Twitter. You know, it just seems like guys just really want to, those guys who are invested in that space, they just want to shut down any sort of avenue that might provide some light at the end of the tunnel. They want to shut it down. So now they've started to come for the idea that men peak in their 30s. So they're talking to younger guys. They're like, no, don't think you're going to peak in your 30s, bro. It's over in your 30s. You're completely, like, you're 30. You think you're going to peak in your 30s, mate, it's completely over. You're far too old, man. Not my experience, but they will have a different view. And he said, I will not commit to one girl as I know I will cheat on her. Well look, I think, as I always say on these videos, monogamy, I don't want to get into is monogamy natural or not, because I don't know if that's the right terms to use to frame the conversation. But monogamy is certainly very difficult. I don't think monogamy is an easy thing for either gender. And it's certainly not for men. Okay? So is it abnormal at the age of 37 not to want a regular girl and to be promiscuous? No, I don't think it's abnormal at all. I actually think it's, if you want to label it anything, I would say it's normal. And I would say what a lot of other people do, which is to get into a monogamous partnership and usually a marriage of some kind, or a marriage. In a way, that's abnormal. That's the abnormal thing, in a way, because those guys really are going against their biological programming. This is one way of looking at it. They're going against their biological programming. So in a sense, you could argue that what they're doing is abnormal, and what you're doing is actually the more normal thing. But of course, it doesn't feel like that because you're going against the grain of what a lot of society is doing, let's say, depending on your social milieu. But a lot of society is not doing that. But arguably, you're just doing the natural thing. You're doing what comes naturally to you. But in the end, it doesn't really matter that much, does it? It doesn't really matter what's normal or what's not, or what isn't normal. It just matters what is it that you actually want, and are you getting what you want? Are you living the life that you want in the moment? And if you are, fine, as long as you're not hurting anybody and you're not hurting yourself. If you're not, then obviously it needs attention. And I think there's a lot of people who go into marriages at 37 or 38 or 32 or 45 or whatever, and they think that's going to be the answer, and they're not necessarily happy either. So you can't, it's very difficult to think, well, if only I did this, then everything would be great, because that's not the case either, often. YDKI says, but even so-called monogamous men have porn addictions. I genuinely think asking men to be monogamous is like asking women not to be hypergamous. Yeah, I think I agree with that. From my observation, I think I agree with that. I mean, certainly that seems to me to be the case. Yeah, I think it's inbuilt in us, to be honest. And I do think it's inbuilt into men in a way that is different. Because women tend to, and I've heard girls confirm this on, when I've been on podcasts and things, and there's girls there, I've seen girls confirm this, that basically when they are in love with a guy, when they're in love with their man, whoever that is at the time, she can't see anybody else. Other men are just invisible to her. She's fixed on that guy. And that's not always the case for men. Men could be completely in love with a woman, absolutely completely besotted with a woman, and still see the girl who works at the local, in the local coffee shop or whatever, walk past and want to smash. And it's not because he loves his main girl any less. It's because that's just his biological programming. And men can, I think, have sex and it can be meaningless. And I think that is a lot harder for women in the main. So Dark Knight Dev says, how many times can you count on your hand that you've seen men talk their way out of a girl's pants? What did they say and do? Well, I can't really remember. I mean, I've been alive for really far too long now. So I've probably seen a lot of examples of it. I've probably seen a lot more examples than I could even count on one hand. I can't remember all of them, but I've certainly seen it, and I've certainly done it myself enough times. And there's various ways that you can do it. I mean, the problem is that in the delicate dance of dating and mating and attraction, it's not over until it's over. All right, it's not over until the fat lady sings, as the expression goes. And so you can have a girl who ostensibly is really into you, and you can sometimes be in a situation where a girl will approach you, or not, maybe not approach you, but she will certainly giving you all the right signals, and she'll be facilitating everything, and you intuit rightly, this girl's really into me, this is on. And then you do something and you mess it up, and she looks at you in disgust, and then she doesn't return your calls and she ends up blocking you or something like that. That kind of thing can happen, and it does happen a lot. And the reality is, until you guys have been intimate together, you don't really have anything. It's sort of ephemeral. It's all talk until you pass that threshold of intimacy. Okay. So it can happen for many, many different reasons. And the problem is that the longer that you're in the talking phase with a woman, the more likely it is you will do something to mess it up, because you just have more time. Say you guys are talking for 3 weeks, and then, which I would never recommend, but say that you were, and then say that you are a massive Trump supporter or something like that, and then for the first 2.5 weeks you don't mention politics, nothing, that doesn't come into the conversation. She thinks you're amazing, whatever, and then suddenly 2.5 weeks in, you mention something favorable about Trump, and she absolutely hates Trump, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh Jesus, this guy's an arsehole, and then she starts to go cold on her texts, and then maybe you're starting to chase her a little bit, you're getting a little bit needy, you're trying to pull her back in, and then she's repelled even more, and then she ends up blocking you. Okay, so that's one example. Okay, you might say something that she just doesn't like, and it puts her off you. Girls talk about this thing. There's this expression now, isn't there? Getting the ick. Girls will get the ick if a guy does something. Okay, that could be almost anything. It's going to vary from person to person, because women are going to find different things unappealing or appealing. So it's kind of not. It's not super predictable. You can predict it maybe to some extent. Being too needy is always a bad thing to do. There's basically 2 ways you can fuck yourself over, and they're contradictory, I'm afraid. The first one is you can be too needy. Okay, so you can be too all over her. You can be too up in her DMs. You can be sending her good morning and good night messages every day. You can be too trying too hard. Okay, so that's one thing, and she can get the ick, and she can decide she doesn't like you anymore. Okay. On the other hand, you can also be too sexual and too aloof, or I messed up a good thing with a girl one time, because for some stupid reason, because of something I'd read in a book or so, or online or something. This was long time ago. I'd been on a date with her. We'd had this really, really fantastic date. And then for some reason, I got it into my head that it would be a good idea to just not speak to her for the next 4 days. And it was this, I'd read it. It was some dating guru, and I read this thing, and he was saying, basically you've got to be unpredictable. You've got to be a little bit don't show your hand, keep her guessing, all this kind of stuff. So I basically didn't speak to her for 4 days, and then I messaged her, and now all of a sudden, she was really distant and cold with me. I mean, unsurprisingly, because who does that, right? I mean, who just disappears for 4 days? Why would you do that? And we never really recovered it from that point, and that, much to my chagrin and heartbreak and frustration and all the rest of it, we didn't really recover it. There was a postscript to that story, because we did end up recovering it years and years later, but that's an outlier, really. That doesn't happen very often. I mean, basically, I did something. She was really into me. I did something and messed it up, and then she went off me. So, as I say, until you reach that point of intimacy, then you're you're dealing with something that's very nebulous, very ephemeral. It's like trying to grasp at a cloud. Do you know what I mean? It's not really, it doesn't really exist. You know, there's no tangibility to it. So you've got to be very, very careful in those early stages, and really try to not be just talking to somebody for weeks and weeks on end, okay, and giving yourself all of these opportunities to mess it up. I'm not saying, oh, just, you know, like, right, just get her into bed, son, you know, kind of thing. But at the same time, look, I mean, the reality is the more rope you give yourself, the more likely you are to, you know, to hang yourself. So just be mindful of that and recognize that in those early stages, it's kind of everything's to play for. All right, guys, any more comments, any more questions, put them into the chat. So this guy, what's his name? WDK, sorry, YDKA says, do you think there's a difference between an alpha and a bad boy? My understanding is that all bad boys are alpha, but not all alphas are bad boys. All right. Well, yes. We're getting into semantics, aren't we, a little bit here? But yeah, I mean, broadly, I think you're correct. I mean, so an alpha, and look, I don't particularly like these terms. I don't particularly like the alpha and beta terms, really. You know, as Ryan Stone would say, they're useful placeholders. In real life, people can inhabit bits of both of them. So you can exhibit alpha behaviors. You can sometimes exhibit beta behaviors. People will also think of it in quite cartoony terms. So they think that the alpha has got to be this super jack guy, probably with, you know, who looks like Jason Statham with no hair and, you know, super jacked and tattoos on his face, and that means alpha. You know, super like, you know, mean. It doesn't necessarily work like that. It's more about the behaviors. Okay. And anyway, a person can fluctuate in their behaviors between different states. They can do things that are arguably alpha and arguably beta, and it's the same person. So there's a lot of nuances to this. But broadly speaking, so an alpha, sorry, just to backtrack. So an alpha is also contextual. So the classic example is like the CEO of the company, who's an alpha in the boardroom because he runs the company. So he's the big boss, he's the big dog. But then he goes to the local disco and he's surrounded by beautiful 22-year-old girls who don't know who the hell he is. And they look through him as if he isn't there. His alpha status only exists within the context of that boardroom. It doesn't exist at the local nightclub. Okay, so alpha can be contextual. Alternatively, you know, you might have the super jacked, you know, kind of bloke who works on the, you know, who works in the military or something like that, and you put him into the boardroom, and everyone's like, well, who the hell's this dude? You know, so it's contextual. The bad boy thing, you're right. Not all alphas are bad boys because there is a sort of a blue pill alpha, if you like. So there's the kind of alpha guy who maybe he's the head of the. He's like he works. He helps out at the local church. He's the head of the local community. He's like a politician. He's like a do-gooder. He's an upstanding, fine, noble gentleman, you know, who's respected by the community, married for 25 years. He's got 6 kids, all of that kind of thing, you know, the classic patriarch. That guy is an alpha, will be regarded widely, probably in his community, as an alpha, but he's not a bad boy. In fact, he's quite the opposite. Okay. Now, a bad boy is more the sort of person who exhibits dark triad characteristics. So Machiavellianism, narcissism, psychopathy. Okay. That is more the bad boy archetype. Are all of those people alphas? Probably. Could you be a beta bad boy? I suppose you can. I guess you can be a beta bad boy. But those people would be more It's an interesting question. It's not really one I quite considered in these terms before, and also I'm not sure that it matters exactly, actually, whether every bad boy is an alpha. I think for the purposes of what we're talking about, because you could be a bad boy, you could stab somebody. Okay, you're a bad boy, but you could do it in a really cowardly way. You'd stab someone in the back. Okay, so you're a bad boy, but you're also kind of beta because you're not squaring up to your opponent. All right, this is a ridiculous, wild, um, imaginary kind of scenario to try and illustrate this. So you could be a kind of a sniveling, cowardly bad boy, but for the purposes of what we're talking about, in the context that we're talking about it, yes, you're talking about somebody who is self-interested and who goes after what they want, but in their own interests, and doesn't mind about necessarily screwing other people over along the way. That is a different sort of alpha to the alpha who is the head of the local church and he's super religious and he's super concerned about keeping, he's the father of the local community and blah 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 blah. I hope that you can see the distinction there. I think it's pretty clear. Let me know if that makes sense. Put your comments into the chat. Pirates and captains. Pirates don't have kids. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Okay. Anything else? Any other comments? Anything else you wanted to discuss? There was an interesting discussion. I made a video about this actually, but there was an interesting discussion in my Telegram group today. And if you're not in my Telegram group, then you really should join because it's free. There's over 500 people in there now, over 500 guys in there now. A couple of girls actually, but mainly guys. Over 500 guys in there. I think it's about 530 now. And it's just an ongoing conversation about all of this stuff, about dating, about the dating marketplace, about attraction, self-improvement, how to be the best man you can be, all of that kind of stuff, and how to get your riz on in the modern world. I'll put the link below, so make sure to join that chat and get involved, share your experiences, tell us what's going on with your, with the girls that you're meeting, you're dating, wherever you are in the world. And we're all there to help each other and give advice and so on and so forth. So join that. But anyway, there was a conversation going on in the Telegram group today where guys were talking about whether you should date a woman who has a big social media following. Okay. And we got into this ridiculous kind of conversation where basically some guys seemed to be saying that they wouldn't date a woman with a big social media following because it would be too much trouble and she would give you too much trouble and it would be a pain in the butt. And my point, and the reason for this was one of the guys that met this woman and she had 90,000 online followers on Instagram. And my point was, well, that's absurd because we're talking about an attractive woman. Okay, she's got a high social media following on her Instagram account, but who cares? She's still a woman. You're a guy. You guys met. You clicked. You got her contact details. You sent her a message. She's responded to the message. She might be a pain in the ass to deal with. You don't know that yet. She might be super flaky and entitled because of her online fame. You don't know that yet. What you have to do is treat her exactly the same as you would treat any other woman. That is to say, you send her a few messages, backwards and forwards a little bit of riz, propose a date, get her to come out on that date. You guys go for drinks, escalate the date as normal, see what happens. Maybe you guys reach the point of intimacy. If you do, great. Then you think, okay, so do I want to see this girl again? What kind of relationship do I want to have with this woman? As you would with any other woman. Is she cool? Is she somebody that you want to hang out with? Is she somebody that you could see yourself dating or even becoming boyfriend and girlfriend with? If she's somebody you want to see again, then message her and arrange another date. If she isn't, then don't. It's very, very simple. We don't need to overthink these things. It shouldn't be, oh my God, she's got over 50,000 followers on Instagram, so suddenly I'm not going to date her, or it's going to be too much trouble, or you don't know until you get into it. You don't know until you try. And surely, in the end, you want to be dating the women who are the most attractive. Okay, so what if she's got a social media following? It doesn't matter. Okay, unless you're going to take a very puritanical viewpoint on it and go, well, she shouldn't be whoring herself out on social media and blah blah blah. But if you're looking to date casually, which is really what you should be looking for at the beginning anyway, because you don't even know this woman, so you don't know if you guys are going to vibe or not, then none of that should really matter. As I say, the trick, or not the trick, the strategy is to treat every woman that you meet the same. Okay, it's exactly the same whether she's a model and she's got 100,000 followers, or she is somebody who works in a cafe and she doesn't have an Instagram profile, or she's got 4 followers and they're all her family. Okay, it doesn't matter. You treat her exactly the same, and you don't cut people off, or you don't cut out opportunities because you think she's too high status for you. I mean, that's what it comes down to. These dudes basically, they think that this woman is too high status for them, or a woman like that is not going to be held sufficiently enthralled by them, by their masculinity. And so it's going to be a big pain in the ass. And as I said to the guys in the group, that is a big problem because that is a mindset problem, and it's an inner game problem. And mindset and inner game problems are going to screw you over far more significantly than things like looks and height and all this kind of nonsense. Anyway, that's what I think. Let me know if you think differently in the chat. Or if you would never date a woman with a big social media following for some reason. YDKI, do you think you have to be capable of violence to be alpha? Well, it probably helps. I was going to say somewhat flippantly. I mean, I think you need to look like you are someone who can get things done, if that makes sense. I think you need to look like you are somebody who is effective in society, and that can be construed in different ways. But I think you need to look like somebody who is going to get his own way, one way or another. You don't want to look ineffective or ineffectual. You don't want to look like somebody who's going to get pushed around by people or by circumstances. Okay, so that's what I would say. Do you need to go around physically getting into confrontations with people in order to be regarded as an alpha? No, of course not. Absolutely not. And I don't condone that. But equally, are a lot of guys who, who are physically capable in that way regarded as alpha? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Of course they are. So make of that what you will. But I think you need to, at the very least, be seen to be someone who is socially effective. And what I mean by that is, in the broadest possible context, that you are somebody who operates in society in a way where other people are uninclined to fuck with you, and also you tend to get your way more often than not, by whatever means that may be. Okay, and I'm not just talking about one specific social context, like you're the CEO. I mean, just generally, how do you move through society? How do people respond to you? How do other men respond to you? Okay, is it with respect, or do they look at you like a piece of crap and expect you to be the person who opens the door for them when they walk into the hotel? Okay, so think about it like that. Think about effectiveness, social effectiveness in the way that you move through the world. How many day game approaches does a beginner have to do to get a result? Says Darren 882211. Well, Darren 882211. It completely depends. This is the beauty, really, of this kind of thing. It could be one, because the guy could do one approach and he could just get incredibly lucky, and he goes and talks to a woman who thinks he's fantastic, and they end up on a date, and then they end up in bed together, and then they end up dating, and then they get married, and that's it. It could be one, or it could be 2,000. There's so many different factors at play, and this is not a cop-out. Maybe it is a cop-out a little bit, but there are so many factors at play in all of this. There's luck, but there's also, more importantly, the baseline from which the guy has started, because people come at this from different starting points. Some people are very, very socially adept anyway, and they're also maybe extroverted, and they're also very good at connecting with other people generally. They're just not very good at it in a romantic context, and they need to be fine-tuned. There are other people who come to it and they're a complete bag of nerves, and they can't hold eye contact with anybody, much less go and rizz up a girl. So there's a lot, and those people, obviously, it's going to take them a lot more work. It's going to be a lot harder unless they luck out. So if it's a guy who's very well put together, and looks count as well, you know, he's good looking, he's well put together, he's in shape, he dresses well, he's socially adept, he's got a cheeky devil may care aura about him, and he just needs a little bit of direction, and he just needs a bit of motivation to go and actually do it. That guy probably doesn't need that many approaches. If he's a guy who's been socially isolated all his life and finds talking to other people very difficult, and he's not in great shape, and his fashion sucks, and he's got body odor, etc., he's going to have a lot more work to do. And it also maybe depends on geography as well. There are some locations that are more amenable to meeting in that way than others. So there's just such a host of different facets to this. It's very, very difficult. But, you know, I mean, a lot of people would say, I think Tom Torero used to say the first 200 don't count, in the sense that it's almost like a practice run. But that doesn't mean that you can't get any results within 200. I mean, because 200 is a lot, right? For you know, in the context of most people's lives. So, you know, it would not be surprising if you got some kind of result within that 200. But at the same time, you shouldn't take it too much to heart if you don't, because you're doing something that is very challenging and which most guys don't ever have the inclination or the balls to do. Slugo says, or Slugo says, north of Bucharest is a city called Brazov. Have you been? I've heard it's expensive and full of tourists, but sure is beautiful. Worth the trip, or do you recommend staying in the big cities? Well, I'm here actually to meet up with a friend, and I'm going to be doing some. I've got some things to do here, so I'm here for a purpose, and I'm only here really for quite a short time. In general, so I haven't been to this city. I'm sure it's great. I want to explore more of Romania. It's a fantastic country. I was talking about this in the Telegram group earlier. So again, guys, if watching this, you should join the Telegram group, because we talk about this kind of stuff the whole time. But in general, if you're looking at cities where it might be good from a dating perspective, then you want to try to get a balance between volume, that is volume of population, plus undiscoverability a little bit. So Bucharest, it's a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, it's the biggest city in the country, so you've got volume, which is great. But on the other hand, it's also the most famous. It's the most well-known, and it's the most likely, probably, where you're going to get foreign tourists. I mean, I don't think there's a huge number of tourists here. Maybe there is, I don't know. I don't think it's a hugely touristic place, but you're going to get more visitors here than you are probably this place, or like the second city, or even somewhere like Constanța or whatever else. So what can work very well is to find a second tier city that's not as famous as the main capital, but is still pretty big. So when we were in Poland, we went to, obviously you've got Warsaw, Warszawa, and you've got Krakow, both of which are fantastic. But we ended up going to a place called Łódź, which is a city about 2 hours away from Warsaw. And I think it's the third biggest city in the country, in Poland, and not well known, particularly outside of the country. And we found it to be a lot of fun. And the reason was because you've got a big population, which is ticking the volume box, but you've also got the fact that there isn't a load of British and American idiots running around interacting with the locals, and sort of, you've got more standout in a place like that, because you're less of a known quantity. Okay. Whereas in Warsaw, it's a pretty international place for the most part. If you're an English bloke there, yeah, it's kind of cool, but it's not unknown by any means. Whereas whereas in Wuj it's a bit more rare. He says his grandma grew up in Wuj. Well, no, it's a cool place, man. I've been there a couple of times. But then ironically, that could also, you've got to then be careful because it can also sort of work against you, because when we were in Russia, then we were going to some second, third tier cities. And strangely, we seem to be getting a better reception in Moscow, which is the biggest city, because the women there, it's quite international. The women there probably had at the time, maybe aspirations to travel, and they liked the idea of somebody being from London, for example. In the smaller cities, people didn't seem to care. It was maybe just so far out of their reality, it just almost lost meaning. It was like, well, this dude's from London, so it wasn't any sort of. It didn't seem to lend us any value or any interest, whereas in Moscow it did. So it's a delicate thing, right? I mean, if you go to the back end of Beyond, you might be so far out of the reality. Like even here in Bucharest, right? I know a couple of people here. I know a girl that I talk to a bit, and she travels a bit. She's quite an international sort of person, So for her, she's been to London. So for her, the fact that I'm from London, I'm from the UK. It kind of means something in a sense. I'm not saying she's like super impressed, but it kind of means something. Whereas if you go to some really super small place in Romania, maybe they're just like, well, it's so far out of like their reality or anything that they're really interested in their life. It just becomes this kind of like, oh, so what? I'm not saying, by the way, sorry, this is making it sound like your entire attractiveness is going to be based in where you're from, and obviously it isn't. But I'm just using it as an example. Oftentimes you'll go to these places and you'll sort of have a bit of, you've got some interest for the locals because you're different, you're from somewhere else. But what I'm saying is, if you could almost get to this point where you're going to somewhere and they just don't really care because it's just so far out of their orbit that they're just not really bothered. Do you get more girls from cold approach or social circle? You mean me personally or Jim? I suppose he means me personally. I mean, cold. I don't really like the term cold approach, to be honest. It just sounds so weird. It's like cold approach. Cold approach is the answer. Social circle is. I mean, I'm not really personally. I've got a lot of female acquaintances. I suppose I am kind of in a social circle with quite a few women, but they are women that I would not date and who would not date me. It's just not on the table. Social circle is problematic for a number of reasons, unless you're going to do it in some kind of super Michael Sartain kind of way, where you're friends with all of these models and you're hanging out in Vegas and you guys go to pool parties together. Maybe that can work. But for the most part, when regular guys talk about social circle, it doesn't really work very well as a dating strategy. It can work well because a lot of people use social circle and they meet husbands and wives and stuff through social circle. So yeah, obviously it works. But the problem with it is, firstly, you're kind of, you can't really go and just rizz up a girl who's in your social circle without looking like a fucking weird kind of creep, okay? And you don't want to do that because obviously you're friends with these people, maybe you're friends with her guy friends or whatever, you've got these connections. So you're just not going to do that, okay? Which means that you're not going to really be able to portray yourself. The great thing about cold approach is that you can deliberately portray yourself as the lover character. Okay, you can deliberately position yourself as the sexy, exciting, interesting, mysterious guy, which you can't really do with social circle because A, she knows you already, and B, you're not going to try and pull that in front of mutual friends and all that kind of stuff. It would just seem weird and creepy, and you're going to get ostracized from the group. Okay, so that's the first thing. And the second thing is, because of that, what tends to end up happening is that guys take a very passive role in the dating process in social circle. What happens in social circles is the guys sit around and go to social events and go to the barbecue and go to the pub and the quiz night or whatever, secretly hoping, I hope Jane likes me so that something can happen between me and Jane. But the strategy is not, right, I'm going to now do something. I really like Jane, so I'm going to walk up to Jane and I'm going I'm going to do some riz, and then hopefully I want to get together with her. It's more like, okay, I'm going to go to the quiz night, and I'm going to hope Jane notices me because I really fancy her. Do you see what I mean? Necessarily it's a more passive thing, which is not what we recommend, because what you don't want to be sitting around passively waiting on the off chance that Jane fancies you. And if there's somebody who's hotter than you in the group, the alpha male of the group, whatever, the super jack guy, the Chad of the group, right? She's probably going to prefer him. So you're sitting there frustrated and sad and beset with one-itis, when actually you could have bypassed all of that by being friends with that group, but equally going out and socializing and meeting new people through cold approach and through being proactive in your dating life. And then you wouldn't have this massive crush on Jane because you'd be meeting other people through the other thing. All right. Which is ultimately a lot better. So I personally prefer to keep them separate, really, for the most part. I've got the social circle thing here, and then I've got the dating thing over here, and never the twain shall meet. But that's just me. I don't know. You understand what I'm saying, though, hopefully. I think that it's if you say, right, I'm going to meet women through social circle, effectively what you're saying is, I'm going to leave it up to fate. I'm going to be friendly with a load of people. I'm going to sit around and I'm going to hope some girl likes me. And that is the strategy that 99.9% of men use. And I mean, obviously it works for some of them because people get married and people meet partners. But are you going to meet the woman of your dreams like that? Is there a chance that you can get hit with some one-itis and be terribly hurt and upset for a long period of time? Is it possible you just sit around incredibly frustrated? Yes. Yes, absolutely. Which is why we don't recommend it. Slugger, you might as well stack your bonuses where you can. Random Donut says, big up, Troy, listening to this while in the gym. Good stuff, man. Remember, it's always the extra reps that really packs it on, isn't it? It's that extra rep you don't really want to do, or didn't maybe expect to do, but you think, right, I'm just going to squeeze an extra one out, and those are the ones that really make the difference. Telegram group link in the description. Yeah, in fact, hold on, I can put it in the chat actually. Hang on one second. 536 members at the moment. I reckon we can get to 600 pretty soon. We jumped very, very quickly. There was only about 100 people in there for ages because I didn't publicize the group. It was actually for people who've been in CAD Academy. And then I thought, and we weren't really doing anything in the group. And I thought, right, let's just open it out. So I started to publicize it, and we quadrupled in size in about a week. It went from 100 to 400. And then it went up to 500. And then it slowed a little bit in terms of growth because I haven't been I've been promoting it, but I haven't been promoting it quite as much. It's taken a backseat to some other stuff. But guys are still coming in. As I say, 536 now. I think we'll get to 600. I might start to push it a bit more aggressively again at some point, and then we'll get to 600. I reckon we can get to 1,000 pretty quickly. I mean, the difficulty with a group like this is, and I suppose there might be an argument actually of having a Discord. I don't know if you guys use Discord. If anybody uses Discord and thinks it'd be a good idea for me to have a Discord, put a comment in the chat and let me know, because the issue with the Telegram group is that you can't really, well, you can organize it into topics actually, because we tried it. I tried to put in a topic where it was, okay, right, post here to tell your stories about approaching and specific results and things. And it kind of, it just doesn't really work very well in Telegram, I don't think, to have different sections. So basically you've just got this long conversation. A lot of people don't necessarily contribute, they're just lurkers. A few people contribute a lot, but it's hard if you drop out the conversation for a day, then it's hard to get, you go back in, it's like, what the hell are these people talking about? So I don't think, I'm really selling the group now, aren't I? It makes it sound terrible. But I just think that Telegram is limited in some ways as a medium. But equally, it's also fantastic because we've been having some fantastic conversations in there, some really really great stuff. I'm in there a lot. I find it really helpful to obviously to interact with you guys and to find out actually what the what the issues are, so that we can help to address them. But people like, I know other people like David Bond's got a Telegram group. There's over 1,000 guys in there, and it's the same setup. I'm in other groups that are the same setup. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast, really. But yeah, for the moment anyway, that's my main sort of forum, if you like. So I would encourage you to join. So that is the link. Sluggo says he doesn't use Telegram, but he does use Discord. Okay, well, look, I mean, okay. I mean, I've been in a couple of Discords. I don't really. I know quite a few of the streamer type people have Discord. Yeah, I need to look into that really. Oh, that's interesting. So DC99 says agree on sections. Telegram is easy. Discord can get a bit messy. I thought Discord would be easier to arrange sections, but maybe not. I don't know. I don't use Discord really, so that's why. Sluggo says, remember, everyone sides with the lady when there's a fight, so make sure to handle the breakup amicably if you're dating in your social circle, if that social circle matters to you. Yes, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you've got all of these issues as well, because even if you do get together with someone in your social circle, then, I mean, and then if you do break up as well, and this happened to a friend of mine, then it's like, well, what happens then? You could lose your social circle, right? In the worst case scenario, because or you keep seeing your ex around the whole time because you guys have got mutual friends and stuff. I mean, yeah, it's problematic. It's problematic. I mean, I've always dated women outside of. I can't even think of a time. Certainly not a long-term girlfriend where I've had a long-term girlfriend that I've met from social circle. It just hasn't really happened for me ever. It's always been women that I've met kind of randomly or elsewhere. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't. I think it's actually a pretty good thing, because I think that you need your social circle there. I'm not saying never introduce your girlfriend to your friends or anything like that. I mean, obviously do that, but at the same time, you want to have your group of people. It's a bit like don't shit where you eat in terms of work, isn't it? Like, you imagine you're dating somebody at work for 2 years and then you guys split up, but you've still got to go into the office every day and see her. Not great. Similar thing with your social circle, and actually we need a social circle, so you don't necessarily want to jeopardize that by getting with somebody in that social circle, and then there's that risk that you guys split up, and then that makes it problematic then for you and your friendship group. Right, YDKI says, I've never done a cold approach, but met plenty of girls whose social circle only works when you're the AMOG. I've never done cold approach, but met plenty of girls through social circle. It only works when you are the AMOG, but you're right about one-itis when it doesn't work. Okay, right. So I think what you're saying here is that social circle only works when you are the alpha male of the group. And that, I believe, is correct. That's what I was trying to say before. It's fine if you are in the social circle and you are the Chad, you are the top guy in that social circle, then yeah, all the girls are going to gravitate to you. So that's fine. But what if you're not? Then you're going to be then you're sort of, as I say, the danger. The real danger with this is, it depends on what kind of guy you are, where you're coming from, what your experience with all this stuff is. But the danger is that there's guys out there who are very inexperienced, and their only strategy is social circle, or their only plan, if you like, for this stuff is social circle. But they're also not the Chad of the group. They're also not the alpha male of the group. And that guy is just going to sit there and have to go to picnics and brunches and nights out and all this kind of crap, hoping against hope that one of the women notices him. And if he's not the alpha male of the group, and all the attention is being taken out by some dude over here, then it's not going to happen. And that guy is just going to be incredibly frustrated, and he's going to go home and start going on to black pill channels. Oh my God, dating is so terrible. But he hasn't really given himself the best chance, because everybody thinks, oh yeah, social circle, that's how you meet people. And you know, as I say, I mean, we can't discount it, because people obviously people do meet through their social circles, but really, in a way, you give yourself the best chance to meet new people when it's a cold approach, or that is to say, when you're meeting somebody completely new, where there's no context between you, no prior context between you, because then you're able to just reposition yourself as well. So she's never met you before. You walk up to her, you make a good impression on her. She's like, wow, this guy's super cool. Whereas in your friendship group, I'm not saying anybody here is a jerk or whatever, but you know, in your friendship group, they're like, oh yeah, do you remember that time 5 years ago in the pub he got drunk? And they've got all these associations with you already. The other problem with social circle is that women will often put you into the friend category or the lover category pretty quickly. Okay. And if you are in the friend category with the women in your social group, it is almost impossible to get out of that category. Okay. It just is. You know, or unless she has a change of heart. Okay. But you can't really affect that. Again, your strategy is hope. Your only strategy then is hope. I hope that she changes her mind. I hope that she realizes that I could be more than a friend to her. I hope that she realizes what great qualities I have as a man and how great a partner I could be for her. But hope is not a strategy. You know, you can't rely on hope. You can't rely on blind hope that some girl's suddenly going to wake up one day and think, oh, actually, yeah, I quite fancy him. You know, you're living in cloud cuckoo land. Much better to be proactive, to take life by the balls, and to go out there and just go and approach some people and see women that you're attracted to, go up and start conversations with them, and try to bend the fates to your will, as opposed to just sitting there passively and kind of hoping that something's going to happen. All right, so YDKI says, I agree with you, but I also think trying to become the AMOG is a vital part of learning game. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I take your point. But yeah. I mean, I think you want to, over time, you want to become the guy who is more likely to dominate or to be impressive in a social grouping. I think that's absolutely true. The difficulty that you might have, or that some guys might have, though, is that if you are in a pre-existing social group and the roles are already defined, it can be quite difficult, if not impossible, to change that. You know, it just can, because they have a certain view of you. They see you in a certain way. All the people in that group, you are somewhere in the pecking order. It's really hard to just transcend that, you know, because you're going to get resistance from the guys at the top. You're gonna. It's just very, very difficult to do that. And often, again, this is why sometimes breaking away from those groups can be a valuable thing in order to self-actualize as a guy, because your friends can hold you down as well. There's a crabs in the bucket thing going on sometimes. Sluggo says, all through my 20s, I was a social butterfly, relatively hot and cleaned house. But most of my friends really struggle with that. I tried to tell girls, one of the guys liked them, never worked. Okay, so you try to help out your guy friends, and the girls just wouldn't be responsive to that. All right, well, that's interesting then, isn't it? So even if you've got a friend like Sluggo who's trying to help you out and trying to give you an in the social group, the girls aren't necessarily going to buy it anyway. And that's if you've got a friend who's actually actively going to try and assist you in the process. As I say, I think social circle, it depends what we mean by social circle. I think social circle in a kind of Michael Sartain way, if you guys are familiar with him, the guy who lives in Vegas, he does content with Ryan Tomasi now. He's on Rule Zero sometimes. That sort of social circle thing where you're deliberately friends with a bunch of very hot women and you're going to the nightclub together and everything, and some of them are friends, but that's drawing in other their friends, maybe they like you and you guys get together. That kind of thing, I think, can work. Although it's a lot of work, it's a lot of effort, and you might be better off just doing some approaching, really, if you want to save time. But that kind of approach might work. I think when we're talking about friendship groups from school and university and from the workplace and so on, there's a lot of underlying politics in those situations that can make it all a little bit tricky. And to be honest, even if you can break through all of that, I don't know if that's really the best use of your time, when really you could just get a plane to Colombia and have a ball. Troy, do you ever see your plan to phase out of game like RSD, or do you see this as your way for the future? Well, I mean, I think that, I mean, I. Well, the Matrix took us down, but we're back. I don't know what happened then. The internet just dropped out for some reason. So let's bring this to a close anyway. So I think that my content is partly about attraction and what you might call game. I've done quite a lot of videos more broadly about relationships and about society and so on and so forth. And I think that will continue as we go forward. There's obviously a wider self-development piece as well. I mean, I'm not sure I would want to go as woo-woo as RSD, but I think there is, I think there are different nuances about this. I mean, I think probably as well for me, I mean, it's more, I straddle, on the one hand, I'm talking about dating advice, I'm talking about what we used to call game, whatever. So I'm talking about that, but I'm also kind of I'm kind of a red pill, if you want to say that, figure as well, in the sense that I work with a lot of those guys. And you look at people like, John Modern Life Dating, or I say Rollo, but I mean, Fresh and Fit, and all these sort of people. I mean, I'm a small part of that, and those people aren't. They're not like game people, are they? Like RSD. I mean, they talk about it, but it's part of a broader piece. And I sit more in that space. I think I'm not like some kind of crazy pickup artist or anything like that. Although I do talk about dating and attraction, but only because I think psychologically I find it very interesting. But I'm not somebody who is like a the whole space has evolved since the days that you're talking about anyway, really. What does it lead to? There's always some boring wanker in the chat, isn't there? What does it lead to if we're only teaching about how to get the type of women who aren't wife material? I mean, who said we're not? How will they know how to identify a good woman, to attract a good woman ready for a wife and family? Well, I mean, look, I mean, my content is about, as I said, it's about a number of different things. Partly it's about attraction and game. It's also about other things as well. But the game portion of it is about attraction per se. Nobody is saying this kind of approach is only going to attract women who aren't wife material. It's absurd to say that, because the manner in which you are attractive is going to be attractive to women in general, whether they're wife material or not. And how do we determine whether somebody's wife material or not? I mean, that's another question, and it's not really one for my channel, because I'm not married. I don't really have any desire to get married. I don't think marriage is a particularly good idea, certainly not legal marriage. So it's not really a question that I delve into. But what I would say is that what I do teach, which is about the fundamentals, the chemistry that one needs to ignite in order to be attractive, and to ignite desire in the other person, okay, are exactly the same whether you're looking to meet somebody for a long-term relationship or whether you're looking to meet somebody for a one-night stand or for a casual relationship, okay? In terms of the quality of the woman, the quality of the women that you get tends to be a reflection of you. Tom Torero used to say, the girl is your mirror. And what he meant by that was that wherever you are in your life, the quality of the woman or the women that you meet tends to reflect where you are in your life. So if you're meeting low quality women that are not very classy or are trashy, it may well say more about you than it does about those women or about the techniques you use to meet them. Sluggo says, by plugging the other men in the group, I was basically a-mogging them without realizing it, by vouching for him, suggesting the subtext that he needs to be vouched for. Bad wingman tactic and respect. Yes, it might also, I mean, I don't know, but it might also actually end up making her more attracted to you, because it's kind of like this. Wait a minute, this guy is so non-needy that he's pushing me off onto other dudes. Fucking hell, I don't want these other dudes. I want this guy, because this guy has got something going on. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if that happened, but I'm just saying that's a possibility. Anyway, look, let's bring this to a close. The Telegram group, I'll stick it in the chat again. So join the Telegram group. If you're not in the Telegram group already, join the Telegram group, okay? And then we can continue these discussions on there, and you can chat with the other guys. Yeah, that's about it, really. I'll try and do another one of these this week. More videos to come up this week, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Buy my books if you haven't got them already. Renegade Dating Blueprint, collection of 11 books about dating and the dating marketplace and all of that stuff. Link is below. And if you want to talk about your dating life, and you want to talk about, let's see if we're a good fit for doing some coaching or working together one-on-one in some capacity, then there's a link below. You can book a free call with me. We can have a chat for 15 minutes to sort of size each other up, see if there's some strategy we can figure out to work together going forward. And we'll take it from there. But anyway, thanks for joining me, and I hope you have a great evening. Sorry, I just thought there was another comment. I hope you have a great evening. Join the Telegram group. The link is there, and I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye-bye.